Greetings to everyone. Good evening. First of all, it's very heartening to see the great progress that Kakatiya Sandbox has made over the last few years, and some of these new initiatives, the skilling program, the physical construction of K-Hub building, these are all very impressive. So congratulations to Raju Reddy Garu, Funny, and everyone else associated, Manish, and everyone else associated with the sandbox. In fact, many people may not know this, but just because we have this sandbox in Telangana, the Kakatiya Sandbox in Nizamabad, JICA, it is a Japanese agency, Japanese International Cooperation Agency, which provides soft loans for various kinds of programs, infrastructure programs, developmental programs. They have given us 1700 crores to Telangana government just because Kakatiya Sandbox is there. When their team came to look around and study whether rural innovation, social innovation is important for the government, we always used to tell them about Kakatiya Sandbox and tell them that this is what we want to replicate throughout the state, and we obviously require support, and therefore they created this wonderful window for us to get that support. And what is happening in Kakatiya Sandbox will become tomorrow the model for various such initiatives happening across the state. So see, the fact is, I mean, it's a nice coincidence that we are having our event here in T-Works. Right next door is T-Hub. When these institutions started, so T-Hub and T-Works, they are in their new buildings over the last few years, but they have been in existence for more than 10 years now, in smaller forms, in different buildings. One of the observations that we would make was that if you see the profile of people who are occupying T-Hub or T-Works or V-Hub, we have another institution called V-Hub, you would notice that a large majority, I don't have precise numbers, but definitely a very large majority would be people who are highly urban, people from Hyderabad, who have gone to a college, who speak English, and who obviously know how to make use of these kind of facilities. We would hardly get people from rural areas, small towns, what are called as tier 3, tier 4 locations, not to speak about villages at all. And obviously we realize that we are missing out on something very important. People who live in the cities, there is a tendency, many times in the panel also, Funny and Raju Reddy Garu were pointing out that Nizamabad is seen as a small town and people have no aspirations, it's a small place. That is a typical mindset that nothing happens in small towns, people are just kind of managing their lives in a very pedestrian way. The belief is that all the wisdom, all the talent, all the innovation is happening in big cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc. But the reality is very different. In fact, there is one very obvious indicator that a lot is happening in rural areas, in small towns, which we are not able to capture. And that indicator is, see, it is a reality that despite good intentions, despite good efforts, there are still hundreds and hundreds of challenges and problems that people in rural areas, in small villages, in remote locations, even in working class neighborhoods in our cities, etc., they encounter. But we don't see that people are protesting day in and day out. Every day there is some dharna, there is some rasta roko, people are damaging some property, people are up in arms. You don't see any of that. So of course, one interpretation is that people have reconciled to these problems. They know that nothing is going to happen. Nothing happened in the past, nothing will happen in the future, and I just learn to live with it. This conclusion could be true, but the reality is very different. The reality is that lots of people actually are solving some of these problems. I mean, they may not be innovators in a conventional sense, but they are definitely problem solvers. And if you scout who these people are, what problems are they solving, they will see, you will notice lots of application of mind. The person who has solved that problem may not know which principle of mechanics or which principle of physics has been applied, but he knows a practical way of solving that problem. Again, the tendency amongst people who live in the cities is to look down upon this kind of problem solving. There's a much maligned phrase or a term which is called jugaad, that these people don't understand science, they don't understand technology, they just do some quick fix kind of thing. But if you really dive deep into those quick fix solutions also, you see lots of application of mind. This quick fix thing has not happened just by chance or trial and error. The person who has created that quick fix solution also has understood what is the problem, what could have been tried out to solve this, and maybe this is the best way of solving it. So lots of rural innovation is happening, but how do you give a structure to that? How do you give a shape to that? How do you ensure that whatever is happening is available actually to more number of people, it spreads, it scales, and therefore sandbox kind of an experiment, sandbox kind of a model, a bottoms-up model is very important. And the Hubli sandbox, the Kakatiya sandbox have established it beyond doubt. But the other important model which I really appreciate about this sandbox is, and this is something which I have myself experienced many years ago. I used to work in a project which was focused at the poorest of the poor. In the combined state of Andhra Pradesh, we were fortunate to have received a generous funding support from the World Bank this time to help the poorest of the poor. And I was the project director. I was the first project director working in a district, and we realized that one of the most impactful interventions which we covered in that project was that all the project staff would actually live with the poorest of the poor. So we had recruited about 100 odd coordinators to work in that project, and over a period of time, very quick discovery that this is the only way to capture space in the minds of the poorest of the poor, and eventually capture space in the hearts of the poorest of the poor. It's just the sheer act of living with them. And obviously the poorest of the poor won't live in villas or apartments and all that. They will have only some very basic kind of huts and all. But our coordinators chose to tread that path, to live with them, and living is not symbolic kind of thing. Like we see so many people, they spend a night with a Dalit family and it makes big news. It's not like that. People spent months altogether living with the poorest of the poor, and just that fundamental thing that I could have chosen to do anything in the world. And these people, these coordinators whom we had recruited in the project, they were highly sharp people. They were well educated. Many of them were BTechs, many of them were MBAs, many of them had studied social work. They could have got jobs anywhere in the world, but they found that this is a very challenging kind of a opportunity to help someone who is the most vulnerable, and do it in a very autonomous, very engaging kind of bottoms-up way. And that really worked. In fact, the project has today become a role model, not just in India, but across the world. And if someone asks me, 20 years have gone by since we implemented that project, and if anyone asks me what really was the foundational difference or intervention, I would say this, that people chose to live with the poorest of the poor. And it's not that you live the rest of your lives with them, just living with them for some time till their understanding about their own poverty situation, what needs to be done, how do you come out of poverty. Once that, as they say, vision comes in their minds, till then you need to be there. And obviously there are hundreds and hundreds of villages to cover. So you cannot perpetually be tied down to one village, living the whole of your life. You have to move to the next one, and all that. So I see very much the kind of the same approach, the same philosophy, that if I have to do something for people in the rural communities, I should discover what exactly is happening there, who are the people who are making a difference, what is the potential of the young people. I'll make sure that I participate this year. There is another reason for me to go to Nizamabad frequently. Very recently, some of you may note this, but I have also taken the additional responsibility for sports in Telangana government, and lots of very eminent sports persons have roots in Nizamabad, including Nikhat Zareen and Saundarya Yandala and so many others, and Muhammad Hosmauddin. Lots of very talented sports persons are there. So I want to also go there to study and to understand how has that small town been able to produce so many sports persons, which are the schools, what is the talent, and see if as a sports secretary in the state, I can contribute to the sports ecosystem also. So obviously that will bring me to Nizamabad more frequently, and I'll be kind of surely spending time with all of you there. So once again, greetings and good wishes for your future endeavors. Thank you very much.